Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate. Turkey and its president opening up a new front in Syria against the Syrian Kurdish forces. We're talking about it with Ahmed Berat Çonkar, Member of Parliament for the Turkey's ruling AK party, head of the Turkish delegation to the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. Thank you for being with us again. From Ankara, also in the Turkish capital, correspondent Jasper Mortimer. In the U.S. capital, it is Michael Pregin, adjunct fellow at the Hudson Institute. And France 24's very own James Andre is with us. Yeah, Turkey's president taking on all comers, including the United States.
Afrin
Afrin will be settled. There won't be a step back from Afrin. We discussed this with our Russian friends. We have an agreement. We also talked to the other coalition powers. We also talked to America, but we could not convince them of one thing. What was that? We told them, why are you combating the Islamic State group with a terror organization? Why are you doing this with a terror organization like the PYG, the YPG or the PKK? Come on, do this with your strategic partner, Turkey.
Michael Pregin, your reaction when you hear Turkey's president?
Well, you know, it's interesting. When ISIS was moving on Kobani in 2014 during the daytime, we saw Turkish tanks overlooking Kobani and not doing anything to help this Kurdish town fall. And it was giving ISIS a huge propaganda win to be able to mobilize during the daytime without being hit. We had to do something. It was an embarrassment to the United States. It was an embarrassment to our ISIS strategy. So we started backing the YPG in Kobani with help from Peshmerga from Iraq. So our special forces advisors worked with the Peshmerga, both the Iraqi and the YPG Kurds, to push back ISIS and hand it its biggest defeat on live television. So I can see why we started working with the YPG. But I agree it's not the right force to use in Sunni areas because it gets rejected. Just like the Shia militias backed by Iran were not the right forces to use to clear ISIS from Sunni towns in Iraq. It just doesn't work. And now we're dealing with the ramifications of that, picking the wrong clear and hold force. And you have Secretary Mattis saying, in one case, ISIS is an ally in the fight against, the YPG is an ally in the fight against ISIS. And on the other hand, saying, but Turkey also views it as a terrorist organization. And saying we're working through this, meaning Afrin, we're not going to do much there, but don't do it in Manbij and don't do it in Raqqa. And I think Erdogan's going to test us, to be honest.
Is that not what it's exactly happening right now? I mean, it does look like the United States is walking a very, very thin line. It's going to have to choose, and indeed, the YPG knew this. I mean, I spoke yesterday to Hedia Youssef, who is the co-president of what they call the Rojava, which is Syrian Kurdistan, and she was telling me that while she's extremely critical of what the United States is doing, she says that she considers that the position that consists of saying that all the United States can do is diplomacy, that they cannot intervene militarily backing the YPG is, she says, shameful, and she says that they refuse this position. So they're starting to feel that they're being dropped by the United States as an ally because, of course, Turkey is a strategic ally. Now, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, indeed, without the backing of the United States, chances are it's going to be very difficult for the Kurds to hold on to any territory at all.
Michael Pregin?
Well, I think it's true. We're seeing Sunni resistance in Raqqa, and the United States, unfortunately, has recent examples of abandoning Kurds. In the case of the KDP Peshmerga in Iraq, the PUK Peshmerga to an extent, and now we're seeing the United States try to compartmentalize its support for the YPG, saying the YPG, they aligned with Russia and Iran in Afrin, so not our problem. But are they going to stand up against Erdogan? Is the United States going to stand up against Erdogan when it comes to Manbij and Raqqa? And again, Erdogan has stated, I'm going to Manbij next, and then I'm going to the Iraqi border. So we have to put some red lines in there, but I would urge, just as a counterinsurgency strategy, start building this Sunni Arab force that's required to hold territory and prevent what General Votel is so concerned about, and that's security backslide. He visited Raqqa, and he's concerned that the right force isn't there to keep ISIS out. And that's something we're likely to see happen. It happened in Mosul in 2014 because the right force didn't hold territory. And we're seeing precursors of that happening again. So we got to get out in front of it. The YPG is not the right force for Raqqa. It's not the right force for Deir ez-Zor.
Jasper Mortimer, the Syrian Kurds control most but not all of that border with Turkey. But there's not a majority Kurdish population everywhere.
No, there's not. Francois, if I can just quickly suggest something to Michael. Michael, I think the word you should be using is not Sunni, but Arab. The Kurds are
Sunni. Arab, I agree. Yep, Sunni Arab. Yes.
Right. And perhaps one of the reasons why Turkey's intervention began in Afrin rather than in Kamishli Hasakea, the Kurdish stronghold of Syria in the northeast of Syria, is that the Kurdish-Arab ratio in Afrin is much more evenly balanced there. The Kurds are in the majority, but only just, narrowly so. And the Kurds have been accused of discriminating against the Arabs in Afrin. For instance, in the summer of 2012, after the Syrian government withdrew its forces from Afrin, because it wanted to use them to fight insurgents elsewhere in the country. The Kurds quickly took control of Afrin and instituted the Kurdish language as the language of instruction in the schools. And the fact that there were many Arab children in the schools didn't matter. They now had to be taught in Kurdish, and that was very unfair. So there's less legitimacy to Kurdish rule in Afrin than there is in Kamishli Hasakea.
Jasper, one other point that we heard President Erdogan talk about in that clip we played a few minutes ago, he talks about Russia and the Kurdish forces in Afrin closer to Moscow, they say, than to Washington. And we have this report that there were some 300 Russian military police in the area that pulled out just ahead of the launch of the offensive.
Yes, and it was believed that, you know, the Kurds, when they took control of Afrin, they also took control of a Syrian government base there, an air base. And it is believed that the Russians and perhaps the Americans, I'm not sure of this, were delivering supplies to the Kurds through that air base. But, you know, this operation couldn't go ahead without Russian approval. I think Russia is being very ambiguous, or you could even say disingenuous, when it comments on this operation. Because while it says it is calling for restraint, if the Russians wanted to, it could stop it. The Russians control the airspace up there, and if they wanted to, Russian aircraft could destroy the Turkish tanks and armored personnel carriers that are now rolling across the plains of Afrin. It's not doing that. Erdogan said yesterday that Turkey and Russia had reached an agreement on the operation.
Berat Shankar, let me ask you, at this particular point in time, does Turkey have more in common with Russia than with its NATO ally, the United States?
We can just say this. As far as Syria's territorial integrity is concerned, I think that Turkey, Russia, Iran, and Iraq seems to be much more clear and firm in this commitment. When we compare to the United States or other allies' positions, they seem to be trying to build up a YPG force which may in the future try to get an independent state or kind of a autonomous region. So in this respect, I think that Russia, Turkey, and other regional countries seems to be on the right side as far as defending the territorial integrity of Turkey. Another point regarding Kobani, our friend from United States has mentioned, during that time, as you know, the Turkish army structure was quite different, and we had a coup d'etat with that army. There was a lot of internal resistance and internal difficulties in the Turkish army because of FETÖ, So there are reasons why Turkey did not intervene. But we have let the Peshmerga forces from northern Iraq to enter into Turkish territory and help the people in Kobani, our Kurdish brothers and sisters in Kobani. But as you know, we also opened our borders. Hundreds of thousands of Kurdish people came into Turkey as refugees, and we opened our arms to these people from Kobani and elsewhere. And they are still in Turkey. They have not returned back to the places which is governed by YPG.
And Turkey's president has said today that those refugees, as long as those refugees are still in Turkey, the campaign in Syria will continue.
I mean, we hope that we can free the places where the terrorist organizations are controlling. As you have seen in the Operation Euphrates Shield, now we are building up that area, and we let the local politicians and the local people to build up their environment. We are helping with every humanitarian need there, and there is now 100,000 people got back to that territory of 2,000 square kilometers square that we have cleared from Daesh. So the same thing could be happen in Manbij or in Raqqa or other areas. The people don't want a terrorist organization's offshoot, YPG, to control, because most of the Kurds are not happy with what the YPG is doing in their governance. They are forcing their children to get conscripted into their militia. We are getting a lot of news from Afrin right now. They are taking underage children from their families to get them to the resistance. There is a lot of inhumane, attitudes and things that they are doing. So this group, the YPG, cannot run that places. I mean, there should be Arab, Sunni, and Turkmen, Kurdish, councils that within the opposition, so that there could be a long-term peace and stability in these areas. And that's what we are trying to achieve as Turkey.
On the other side, they view it, of course, differently. Earlier, we spoke to Salih Muslim Muhammad, former chair of the PYD, the Democratic Union Party.
We have no choice only to resist and defend ourselves. We have no other choice. It depends on the international forces and powers, if they are able to stop this, this kind of occupation and invasion to the lands. As you know, Afrin was a very safe haven for all the people. Displaced people from the other areas, they were coming to Afrin area. And now it's hit by Turkish forces and their mercenaries all around, and it's surrounded, is under the siege from 3-4 sides. So this is very brutal attack on the people over there.
Jasper Mortimer, let me ask you, we're getting word that thousands have fled the fighting over the past 4 days. This is a rugged, mountainous area. What lies ahead?
Well, I think the whole operation is very disappointing. Something else could have happened there. We're not hearing that the people are actually fleeing into Turkey. The YPG in Afrin are saying that the people are staying put, but there are some reports that some of the people in Afrin are trying to flee to Aleppo, but they're being stopped. However, look, I'd like to point out your interview with Saleh Muslim is significant because Saleh Muslim came to Ankara at least twice in the years 2012, 2013, 2014. I'm not sure of the dates, but around those times, Saleh Muslim came to Ankara twice. He was hosted by the Turkish foreign minister, then Ahmet Davutoğlu. He gave interviews to the Turkish press. What I'm trying to say is that although the YPG and the PKK are linked, that is undeniable. Turkey is capable of seeing a distinction between those two. At that time when it was entertaining Saleh Muslim, Turkey certainly wasn't entertaining any PKK commanders or envoys in Ankara. But Turkey changed for political reasons. Now, you've also been mentioning Kobani quite a lot tonight. I went into Kobani after it was liberated by the YPG, and I spoke to a YPG commander and a senior PYD official, and it was quite clear to me from what they were saying that the Syrian Kurds want to build an autonomous zone in northern Syria, and to do that they need Turkish construction companies, they need trade with Turkey, they need investment from Turkey. They were asking Turkey to open the gates to them. And so I think this Afrin operation is a disappointment because something diplomatically could have happened. You know, if Ankara had said to the Syrian Kurds, listen, we will give you trade, we'll let our construction companies come across and build your infrastructure, but you must not give any weapons to the PKK. You must not allow the PKK to have any bases in Syrian Kurdistan, and you must allow Turkish military monitors to live in your area to make sure that those rules are not broken. I am sure that the Syrian Kurds would have accepted such a deal because Turkey is such an economic powerhouse. It has everything the Syrian Kurds need to build their autonomous zone. But Turkey didn't make such an offer like that because President Recep Tayyip Erdogan does not want a Syrian Kurdish autonomous zone. He has said that, and he doesn't want it because he knows that it will embolden Turkish Kurds. Turkish Kurds will then say to Ankara, we want what our Syrian cousins have. So, you know, Erdogan says that this operation in Afrin is being conducted for military reasons. But I think the real reason is political. Turkey does not want a Syrian autonomous zone a la the Iraqi Kurdish autonomous zone to emerge.
Michael Pregent, will the end result of all this be that both sides, Turkey and the United States, are going to get bogged down in Syria?
Well, I think what it means is the YPG will continue to look for leverage with Russia and Iran and with the United States. But they have a recent example of abandonment by Russia and Iran in Afrin, and they're likely to see the same thing with the United States unless we hold firm. So I think you'll see the United States accede, acquiesce to Erdogan, and that's not a good message. As we try to build these alliances, we can't have so many recent examples of betrayal and abandonment. It just doesn't bode well for interactions on the ground with U.S. forces and whoever we decide to be our new temporary ally in the fight against ISIS.
James Andre, let me ask you, you were in Raqqa for its liberation. That was in November.
Yeah.
But that's only 2 months ago, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
We're talking as if the war has been won against ISIS. Is that the case?
Well, the thing is, indeed, ISIS has practically no territorial control left in Syria. And this is why what's happening now is happening. Basically, the common enemy between groups that are foes usually has disappeared. So, indeed, what we're seeing is former enemies who allied against ISIS go back to where they were before, indeed, enemies. But what is very worrying is that, indeed, maybe ISIS has disappeared or is, you know, it's coming to an end as far as territorial grip is concerned. What is very frightening is that I've been to Raqqa, and Raqqa is now complete ruin. There's nothing left of the city. Like, for example, when indeed the Turkish say that people should go back, there's nothing to go back to. It's a heap of rubble right now. But what is more worrying is that all the political aspirations of Sunni Arabs in Syria and the ground reasons why ISIS emerged in the first place have not been addressed. Right now, they're exactly in the same situation they were before the war in Syria started. And it's the same situation across the border in Iraq. They're in the same situation than in 2011. The only difference is now their cities are destroyed, their relatives have been killed in this war, and they've had absolutely nothing. Now, there is one big question mark, is what kind of balance of power or deal or negotiation you're going to be able to offer to these Sunni Arabs in Syria in order to build some sort of peace.
Berat Shankar, is it possible to get the Kurds and the Sunni Arabs all around the table on both sides of the border?
First of all, I would say that Turkey is not taking on Syria's Kurds. Turkey is fighting against a terrorist group within the Kurds in Syria, and which is part of the KCK or PKK Syrian wing. We don't have any problem with our Kurdish brothers and sisters. For hundreds of years, we are living together with Turks and Kurds inside Turkey, outside Turkey. We don't have any problems with anybody. And as far as the Salih-Muslim issue is concerned, as you know, at that time, Turkey was trying to convince PKK to lay down its arms and settle for a peace process inside Turkey. And we were taking big risks. Mr. Erdogan was taking this risk, and he was trying to achieve this. And the talks with Salih-Muslim was also a part of this process. But unfortunately, PKK, emboldened by the support from the United States and some promises maybe from other countries that they might have an independent state or autonomous region, they decided to kill or finish this peace process and attack Turkish policemen and civilians and military personnel, and they started to fight again.
So that peace process is
that was not our choice to.
That peace process is dead in the water for now.
To finish this process.
Berat Shankar, unfortunately, we're running short on time.
What I'm saying is that
you have the final word there.
I'm just trying to say that we would like to have the Syria's Kurds, Arabs, Turkmens all together to achieve the peace and stability, and we are going to do all the best we can, and we are already doing that. Inside of Turkey, humanitarian-wise, we are feeding 4 million Syrian refugees right now. 350,000 Kurds are inside Turkey. So they are with us. We don't think that YPG or PKK is representing the Kurds, and we hope that we will achieve this peace soon.
Berat Shankar, I want to thank you so much for joining us
Very
from
much,
Ankara.
sir.
I want to thank Jasper Mortimer and Michael Pregin, as well as James Andre. Media Watch is next. And we say hello to James Creedon.
Hi, Francois. So a look at some of the, I suppose, echoes of the debate topic in the media. First off, a report by Freedom House, the NGO that came out about a week ago. I think it's relevant to tonight's discussion because it for the first time in a long time, in any case, has classified Turkey as a not free country. Turkey is no longer a free country according to global rights reports. So one major factor there would be press freedom. And another story that made it into the international media recently was the Royal Shakespeare Company exploring press freedom in a play about an exiled Turkish editor. We are arrested. That's right, Can Dündar, who is essentially had to flee the country. Essentially, he was jailed as well for exposing arms deals. So that will give you a sense of the climate or the backdrop to all of this, where criticism of this particular military operation in the Turkish press is not really a viable option. Now, you can see here, this is one English language Turkish media talking about the operation. Erdogan says Afrin operation will ensure safety, security of Syrians. But as I said, worth taking into account the context that the press is working in Turkey at the moment. This is a cartoon. God bless the Turkish army for fighting Russia and US at the same time. And you can see there a cartoon depicting the YPG or various Kurdish groups as changing the flag at their convenience. In any case, just worth pointing out as well that there's a certain amount, in any case, on social media of Kurdish groups tweeting in English about the operations. So a certain amount of PR going on in English. That these last days, Turkish army repeatedly fired mortars and shelled Afrin and villages, etc. But pointing out that there is resistance and all of that. So that kind of message very much coming through on social media as well, and criticism of Erdogan for, quote, targeting Kurdish civilians. Various cartoons as well on this particular issue. The Globe Post here comparing this latest operation in Afrin to Israeli policies in Gaza. So really, most of the cartoons are not very flattering of Erdogan, as you might suspect. And this one here suggesting that it's only going to embolden the Islamic State group. This is one Syrian cartoonist as well on social media, I suppose, indicating that it's not an operation for peace.
And just very briefly, James, public opinion in Turkey, a lot of people back Erdogan on this.
Yeah, a lot of people do back Erdogan on this, but as you were pointing out, there is a big problem. Like, Turkey has arrested 91 people last night for so-called, for criticizing, for spreading terrorist propaganda. These are the exact words over this Syrian inclusion. And yeah, indeed, they've been arrested. And there are journalists in there, politicians, etc. So, yeah, no, very tense.
So not a very free debate about it, I guess,
All right.
in Turkey. In any case.
Gentlemen, many thanks. I want to thank our panel. I want to thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.